This video is going to be a quick overview of all the different pieces of the Grid Designer. Let's start first by starting at freeseworks.com, freese-works.com, and we'll just click on this Grid Designer tab here, and that will start the Grid Designer in your browser. Now notice there are no logins, there's nothing here to do, there are no ads. I've been a developer for 30 years, and this is my retirement project. And I intend to keep it a free editor for everybody in the crafting community. So let's go ahead and just show you around in here. So when this opens up, we have a small grid out here in the middle. You can grab that. I'm grabbing that by putting the mouse on it and just moving it around. And you can just start editing right here on this grid. There's basically three ways to start. You can start by editing on this grid, and you can make changes to this, make it larger, change the cell shape, and that kind of thing, depending on type of project that you're working on. And there are two other ways to start. One is you can go to New Project. There is a video that shows how you start projects from there, and that will start you a new grid. You just find the size of it, pick your color palette, and the type of project that you're working on. So that's one way to start. Another way to start is to go to the Create from Image option, and that will allow you to upload an image, like a JPEG file or a PNG file or whatever you want to start with, and it'll digitize it into a grid that you can then come out into the editor and edit. So those are the two ways here to start. Three ways really, because you can work on this default project. Now, if you want to just edit straight from here, there are ways to change this default project. You would go to Display. You can change the grid size here, and we can make this anything we want it to be. Let's make it bigger because I'm going to demo on some of the things on here, and I need a little more space. So let's go and do that. There is a resize video. When you go under here, there's a resize video that will show you more about this particular dialog and what you can do with that. So that makes my grid larger. If I go to this cell size and type, then I can pick a type of project. So I can change this default project into whatever I want. So let's say I was doing a latch hook project and I was working on 5-hole per inch canvas. Okay, you're not going to see anything visibly change here, but once you set that particular size, then if you click over here on this little project info thing, then it will tell you what size your finished project will be, because now it knows that it's working on 5 holes per inch, and it knows it's 100 by 100, so it's going to come up with a 20 by 20 inch canvas. So this tells you a little bit of overview of what's going on in your project. And the last thing you might want to change if you start with a default project is the palette. So let's say I was working on a latch hook project. I might want to go and pull up some latch hook, pre-cut latch hook rug yarn. Let's go find, I was trying to look for Hirschner's here. There it is, latch hook rug yarn. So let's just say we'll use that for a palette. And you can just switch your palette over to this palette. I'm going to say use palette. We're going to convert the current project. And there's more about how to do this conversion in one of the videos on color. And then we can do substitution of, let's find the closest color here to that red that was in our background, and then just say convert pattern. Okay, so now we are using that other palette. So if we bring up our project information here, we're now using Hirschner's latch hook rug yarn, and we're working on a latch hook project. Okay. So that's the way you would change your palette. And then let's go talk about the drawing tools a little bit. There's a lot of buttons down here at the bottom that are colored kind of a gold color or a yellow color, a little bit in the background of it. And these are all drawing tools. These are things that will modify things on the picture here or on the grid. So the simplest thing to do is to click on this draw tool here. That's a very simple drawing tool. So that just allows you to go draw some things, whatever you want to draw. Say we draw a leaf in here. Okay, something like that. And there are fill tools where you can fill areas with color. And if you want to change your colors, the colors are up here, up at the top. This is the foreground color here on the left, and this is the background color here on the right. So the background color is usually used to fill in areas that you are erasing. So if you're erasing something, you're basically filling it in with the background color. And the foreground color is usually used for drawing. But you can also, if you're on a desktop machine, you can also use these colors as two different colors to draw with, where the left, this foreground color here will draw when you put the left mouse button down. And the background color here, let's switch that to something else like yellow. Pick our draw tool. If I put the right mouse button down, I can draw with yellow. If I put my left mouse button down, I can draw with white. So that's another way to use those. And there is a video on drawing tools and also on colors and things. If you're in a complicated pattern and you want to reduce this number of colors here to just what's in the pattern, you can click on the Show Used button. I use that a lot. That will show only the colors that are currently used in your project, and that's very useful once you get your project going and you're just editing and you only want to see those colors. That's really good. Also, if you have a really complicated project, there's a dropper tool here where you can come down and you can select a color. Say we select this yellow here, and then you can then set the foreground or the background color to that color. So now the foreground color is set to yellow. It's simple to go ahead and do this. But if you have digitized a project and you have, 20 different colors out here and they're all very similar, then sometimes the dropper tool is very useful to just go say, oh, I want that color there and I don't want to know what it is. I just want that one. Click on the dropper tool and then pick that color and set your foreground color to that. Okay, you can zoom in, zoom out. Okay. What I like to do a lot is if I'm working in a particular area here, say I'm doing some work in a particular area, and then I want to go look at what the entire thing looks like overall, I'll zoom out like this. And once it has once I zoom out like that, it makes it fit into the window. Then there's a little return arrow here, and that will return me right back to where I was editing. So if I'm editing in a small area, I can zoom out real quick, look how it looks, go back to where I was, and continue editing. I think that I use that a lot. That's a great feature. Okay. Colors are also available here under the floating palette. So you can have a floating palette up here. If you don't like this drop down foreground background color, you can have your floating palette over here and put it wherever you want. You can see the background color here and select that, or you can see the foreground color here and select that. I've been really used to using these, but some people like to have the floating palette up. Okay. In addition, down here we have a bunch of selection tools. There's lots of different ways you can select. You can select all, which is putting a line all the way around the outside of the project. That's mostly useful when you would like to cut and paste something, your entire project into another project. Say you had something smaller and you wanted to then take the whole thing from that project, you can actually copy that, open the other project, and then paste it into the other project. There's a video that shows that also. There are other ways to select things. To clear the selection, we just click the cancel here. We can select things with a rectangular area like this. We can either cut it, which would replace it with red, the background color, or we can copy it. I'm going to just do a copy. And then if we want to paste it, that takes us to a whole new area here of what we call the paste area, and with a whole bunch of other buttons down here. And you have this paste item that you have here that you can move around. You can make modifications to this. There's a video on select, cut, copy, and paste that will show you all of these things. Another video that will show you how to tile areas so you can fill the entire grid with a paste item or fill an area with a pasted item. So there's another video that shows that. In general, if you want to paste whatever you've got onto the screen, there's both a stamp tool, which will give you another copy of that. It'll paste it once and then copy it. And there's also an apply once to the grid. Okay. So there's lots and lots of stuff in there. And there are some more complicated selection tools, one where you can select a particular single area. So I can select this yellow and I can copy it, paste it, and have just the yellow area that I want. So that's another thing you can do. And there is also a multi-select. So I could select this entire motif, which would select both the yellow and the white, and copy that, paste it, and now I've got that floating around over here that I can copy and paste. So the selection tools, I think, are fairly powerful, and there's lots of things you can do that, so be sure and see the select, cut, copy, and paste video. Let's see. All right, we can also put shapes up on thing. There's lots of different shapes here that we can select. This list is going to be extended as I go along and add more things to it. You can do an outline of a shape. You can do a filled shape that has an edge on it, of particular, and you pick your colors over here. Or you could do a solid shape. And then that, when you select one, say use shape, then you can paste that onto the screen and move it around, etc. So you can do shapes. You can do text. Let's put some text over this. Okay. You just draw a rectangle to kind of start out your text wherever you're going to be. And then you can select a different color for your text. Say we want black. And you can pick different fonts down here for what you would like for your text. Okay, so there's some really nice fonts in there. You can change the size of it here. You can rotate it so that it, is at different angles. And you can change, some of these have bold and italic also. Some fonts don't, so it depends upon the font. But there's lots of things you can do there with text. There's also a library tool. This library tool contains contributions. Most of them are my own contributions at the moment, but there are contributions in here from other people. And if you'd like to contribute and are willing to, make some small designs that other people can use, you click this help button down here, and that'll take you to the portion of the documentation that talks about how you can contribute. We can pick up a pattern here, whatever we want to do. Some things are set up as repeating patterns. There's a couple of really good videos on using patterns in the pattern library, and that explain how you do that. Okay. When you're done with your project, there's lots of things you can do with that. First of all, you might want to save your project. So you would click Project Save there and give it a name, say Sample. Okay, so now my project is saved. Now when I come back, I could close the Grid Designer tab and come back. Let's do that. Come back to Grid Designer. Then that project that you saved is here under the Open. So you say Project Open, and there'll be little pictures here of your project. You can store quite a few things. These are all stored in the browser's local storage. So let's pick Sample and we'll open it back up, and now we have our project back. You can also now so when you do a save like this, it's storing your project data on your machine in your browser's local storage. So to get back to your project, you have to use the same browser, same machine, and that's where your projects are stored. If you want to share your project with somebody else, you can make a copy of it on the server by selecting Share. So that'll generates data for the project, and it makes a copy of your project out on my server, which I agree to keep there for at least 6 months. And then you say share, creates the files out there, and then it provides you a link. So you can copy it with this button. That'll put it in your copy in your paste buffer, your clipboard on your machine, or you can just select it like that and do like Control C on a Windows machine, do a copy of that. There's also buttons here so you can share that link directly on Facebook or Twitter or wherever else. You can click the plus and you can pick a bunch of other places where you'd like to share this particular link. But you can also just cut and paste this, put it in an email, send it to a friend, then they can open up your project and look at it. If they load your project into their version of Grid Designer, then they get a copy of yours. So nobody can change this project. It's a fixed copy that's sitting out on my server. Okay. If you need to delete projects after a while, they kind of pile up. There's a delete by list here. Delete project will delete this particular project that you have open. And then these are really important. Download and print. There's a video on how to download and print things. I'll just leave it at that, I guess. But you can download a PDF file. You can download written instructions if you're doing GraphGINs. Or other things, there's written instructions for other things that will just list the colors by row and that kind of thing. So if you have difficulty looking at a graph with small cells and colors and things, you can actually write out line by line, all of the colors that are in your project, line by line, so you could work them by reading a text line. So there's lots of options here. There's a download and print video that will tell you what that is. Then project info does the same thing that we were doing earlier. Project info just opens up this thing when we click the name of the project over here. It just opens up the project info, tells you what colors you're using, what canvas you're using, what palette you're using, and that kind of thing, what the size of your project is and that kind of thing. Then also what's important down here is import and export. And there's a video on import and export. Export is if, say you want to archive some of your patterns. You've got a lot of patterns in your list, and there's some of them in there that are just cluttering things up, and you'd like to take them out of the list of files that you would normally be able to open. If you do an export, you can select particular projects and put them into a file on your computer. So that file has an extension called .gridd. So you can recognize that as a Grid Designer file type. And if you have files that are exported like this, if you have projects that are exported to files, you can import them with this import option. And there is a video on how to do all of that. So, so you can save it here in the browser local storage. You can share it on my server so that someone else can see it from a link. And you can save it to an archive file basically on your machine. And then if you want to look at it later, you can re-import it back into the Grid Designer. You can also, take these files that you export and send them to other people, and they could open them also. So that's another way to share things. Over here we have changes in the display. These are very useful, heavy lines that can be drawn to divide the grid up, particularly good when you print things out. That's a really nice thing. Here's another thing where you can show the mouse position. and you can show the cell color. So you can see now there's a little bubble there that shows the position of the mouse and also shows the color that it's over. So now we're over red, now we're over white, now we're over yellow, that kind of thing. And that can be really useful when you're editing something that's fairly complicated. Okay, and at all times, even after you've decided what your project is going to be, you can always change the type of project. You can change this. I could turn this into a knitting project, which would make the cells be a little squished. I can change it into any type of project that I want here, anytime I want. So I think that's useful if I do something like, say I've made a latch hook rug, and now I want to make a little cross stitch pattern to go on the wall that looks just like the rug. You know, I could go here, I can change it over to a cross stitch project. I can pick up a different palette of like DMC floss, and the colors, there's a way to automatically convert the colors. And again, there's a video on colors and how that works. And I can always change the grid size here. Another way you can change the grid size is there is a plus minus down here, where you can add and delete rows and columns. Okay, if you need help, here's help. There's documentation here in HTML form. That's on the web. You can also open up a PDF document, and from the PDF document, there should be a download button. You can download if you want to download the PDF documentation and read it yourself onto whatever device you've got. You can do that. There are how-to articles. I have a blog, which I'll show you in just a second, has a lot of projects and things in it. My Facebook page has generally information about what's going on with the Grid Designer. If I put a new release out or something like that, it's posted there. And YouTube video tutorials like this one and others are here on my YouTube channel. Okay, let's go over to Blog Home. So this takes you to my home page. You can get to the blog here. You can also get to projects that I have done. Let me just click on projects real quick. So out here are lots of projects that I have made, that I have done with the Grid Designer. So these are some Grafkin projects here, my portrait pillows, another Grafkin project where you can pick up a pink ribbon Lapkin pattern and put a name on it using the Grid Designer. I have several Christmas stocking patterns for knitting and a few latch hook patterns also. And knitted sweater. There's a latch hook rug, another latch hook rug, one that I haven't quite finished. That's a work in progress. And the children's latch hook name rug. So, and there's other projects too in here. This is just, I think, the top few. If you have any questions and you need to contact me, if you're having any problems with the Grid Designer, I respond pretty much immediately. Like I say, this is my retirement project. This is what I do. So go here to the contact tab and you can put your name in here, your email address, and your question. Click the I'm not a robot and the submit button, and that will send me an email. And I do not sell emails. I don't like getting spam emails from people myself, and so I'm not into that. So the only thing you're going to get here by giving me your email address is I will just respond back to your question, and that's it. And I will never send you anything else, guaranteed, because I absolutely hate that. So all you're going to get is a conversation with me by filling this out. So anyway, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video and hope you'll use the Grid Designer. Thanks. Bye-bye.